Princess Kira stood at the tall window of her father's throne room, watching the human ships land in the royal port. Her violet scales rippled with disgust as she saw the small, pale creatures stepping out of their vessels. Today was the day she would be bound in marriage to one of these weak beings, all for the sake of peace between their worlds. The Velden Empire had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. Their people were tall, strong, and covered in beautiful scales that changed color with their emotions. They were warriors born, each one standing over 7 feet tall with muscles that could crush stone. The humans, by comparison, looked like children playing at being adults. "My daughter," King Varek's deep voice rumbled behind her. His golden scales caught the light from the crystal chandelier above. "The human delegation has arrived. It is time." Kira turned to face her father. Her scales shifted from violet to a darker purple, showing her unhappiness. "Must I really do this, father? These humans are so small and weak. What could they possibly offer our empire?" The king walked to stand beside his daughter. His massive frame cast a shadow over her, but his touch on her shoulder was gentle. "The peace treaty requires this bond, Kira. The human worlds control valuable trade routes. War with them would cost us much, and we gain nothing from fighting such a weak enemy. Then why not just conquer them?" Kira asked. "Our fleet could take their worlds in days." King Varek sighed. "Because, my child, sometimes the cost of war is too high, even when victory is certain. The humans have many allies. Fighting them would mean fighting half the galaxy. This marriage will give us what we want without losing a single Velden life." Kira nodded, though her scales remained dark with frustration. She understood the politics, but that did not make this easier. To be bound to a human felt like being chained to a pet. The throne room doors opened with a deep sound that echoed through the vast chamber. The human delegation entered, and Kira felt her disgust grow stronger. They were even smaller than she had imagined. The tallest among them barely reached her chest, and they moved with quick, nervous steps that reminded her of the small prey animals on her homeworld. At the front of the group walked a man with dark hair and kind eyes. He wore simple blue robes that looked plain compared to the jeweled armor of the Velden nobles. This, Kira realized with growing horror, must be her intended husband. "Your Majesty," the human said, bowing low before King Varek. His voice was soft and respectful. "I am Sam Torres, representative of the Human Colonial Alliance. We are honored by your invitation to forge this bond between our peoples." Kira studied Sam as he spoke with her father. He was different from what she expected. Where she had thought to see fear in his eyes, she found only calm confidence. When he looked at her, he smiled warmly, as if he was genuinely pleased to meet her. This confused her more than fear would have. "Princess Kira," Sam said, turning to face her fully. He bowed again, this time to her. "I hope we can learn to understand each other in the days to come." "Learn to understand each other?" Kira's scales flashed bright red with anger. "You mean you hope to survive being bound to someone who could crush you without thinking about it?" Sam's smile did not fade. "I mean that I hope we can find common ground and perhaps even friendship. Marriage should be built on more than politics, do you not think?" This answer surprised Kira. She had expected him to show fear or to make empty promises about loving her. Instead, he spoke of friendship and common ground. It was not what she wanted to hear, but it was honest. The binding ceremony took place 3 days later in the grand hall of the palace. Thousands of Velden nobles attended, their scales creating a rainbow of colors throughout the massive room. The humans sat in a small section near the back, looking tiny among the towering Veldens. Kira wore her mother's ceremonial armor, golden plates that had been in her family for centuries. Sam wore simple white robes that somehow managed to look dignified despite their plainness. As they spoke the ancient words that would bind their lives together, Kira felt like she was watching someone else's life unfold. After the ceremony, Sam and Kira were given quarters in the royal wing of the palace. The rooms were decorated in both Velden and human styles, an attempt to make them both feel at home. Kira found the human furniture uncomfortably small, while Sam had to climb onto chairs to reach the Velden tables. "This is going to be interesting," Sam said with a laugh as he struggled to reach a book on one of the tall shelves. "I might need to ask for a ladder. Or you could ask your wife to get things for you," Kira replied coldly. "Since you are clearly unable to manage even simple tasks." Sam looked at her with those calm eyes again. "I could do that. Or I could find ways to adapt. Humans are quite good at adapting to new situations." Over the following weeks, Kira watched her new husband with growing confusion. She had expected him to demand attention, to try to assert dominance over her as Velden males often did. Instead, Sam seemed content to live quietly beside her, pursuing his own interests without bothering her. He spent hours each day tending to small plants he had brought from his homeworld. Kira watched him carefully water tiny flowers and speak to them in soft tones. When she asked why he wasted time on such useless things, he explained that caring for living things brought him peace. "Plants do not judge," Sam said as he trimmed the leaves of a small tree. "They simply grow toward the light and do their best to flourish. There is wisdom in that simplicity." Kira found this attitude baffling. Velden culture valued strength and dominance. The idea of finding wisdom in weakness made no sense to her. She began to wonder if humans were even more pathetic than she had first thought. Sam also spent time reading books of poetry from his homeworld. He would sit for hours with these thin volumes, sometimes smiling at words Kira could not understand. When curiosity finally overcame her pride, she asked him about it. "Human poetry often deals with emotions and experiences that transcend physical strength," Sam explained. "It teaches us that there are many kinds of power in the universe." "What power could words possibly have?" Kira asked. "Words cannot stop plasma rifles or slice through armor." Sam was quiet for a moment, then recited something in his soft voice. "The pen is mightier than the sword, for words can change minds, and changed minds can reshape worlds." Kira scoffed at this, but something about the way he said it made her think. She had never considered that anything could be more powerful than physical force. As the days passed, Kira began to notice how Sam interacted with the palace staff. Velden nobles typically ignored servants, treating them as living furniture. Sam, however, learned their names and asked about their families. He thanked them for their work and treated them with respect that confused everyone. "Why do you waste time talking to servants?" Kira asked after watching him have a long conversation with one of the cleaning staff. "Every person has value," Sam replied. "The woman I was speaking with has 3 children and works extra shifts to pay for their education. Her dedication to her family is admirable." "She is a servant," Kira said. "Her value is in her work, nothing more." Sam looked at her with those calm eyes again. "I think you might be surprised by how much you could learn if you took time to talk with people you consider beneath you." This comment angered Kira, and her scales flashed red. "Are you saying I am too proud to speak with my own people?" "I am saying that walls built from pride often keep out more than they protect," Sam answered gently. Their most difficult moment came during a state dinner when General Thex, one of the most decorated warriors in the Velden military, decided to test the humans' resolve. Thex was over 8 feet tall, covered in scars from countless battles, and known for his hatred of weakness. "So this is the great human warrior who has married our princess," Thex said loudly enough for the entire dining hall to hear. His scales were bright orange with amusement. "Tell me, little human, what battles have you won? What enemies have you crushed?" Sam looked up at the massive general without showing fear. "I have fought many battles, General, but most of them were fought with words rather than weapons. I prefer to turn enemies into allies when possible." Thex laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. "Words. What good are words against real threats?" He picked up a glass of acid wine, a drink that could burn through metal, and, accidentally, spilled it across Sam's formal robes. Kira watched in horror as the acid began to eat through the fabric. Any Veldan would have challenged Thex to combat for such an insult. Instead, Sam simply stood up, bowed respectfully to the general, and said, "Thank you for the reminder that I should be more careful around dangerous things." The dining hall fell silent. Every Veldan present expected violence, but Sam had turned the insult into a polite comment. Thex looked confused, unsure how to respond to such unexpected behavior. Kira felt her scales burn with embarrassment. Her husband had been publicly humiliated and had done nothing to defend his honor. She wanted to disappear into her chair. Later that night, alone in their quarters, Kira finally confronted Sam about his behavior. "How could you let him treat you like that? Every person in that room thinks you are a coward." Sam was cleaning the acid damage from his robes with careful movements. "What they think of me matters less than what I know about myself." "And what do you know about yourself?" Kira demanded. "That you are too weak to defend your own honor." Sam looked at her directly. "I know that General Thex was trying to provoke me into a fight he would win easily. He wanted to embarrass you by showing that your husband was weak. By not fighting, I denied him that victory." Kira blinked, confused. "How is backing down a victory for you?" "Sometimes the strongest choice is to not use your strength," Sam said. "Thex expected me to react like a Veldan. By responding like a human, I controlled the situation instead of letting him control it." This logic made no sense to Kira. In Veldan culture, backing down from a challenge was the ultimate shame. She began to wonder if humans truly were as weak as everyone said. Her doubts grew stronger when news arrived that changed everything. The Royal Communications Center received urgent messages from scout ships patrolling the outer rim of Veldan space. The Korthak raiders were gathering. The Korthak were the terror of the galaxy. These insectoid pirates had been raiding civilized worlds for over 1,000 years. They showed no mercy, took no prisoners, and left only destruction in their wake. Entire star systems had been stripped clean by their swarms. King Varek called an emergency meeting of his war council. Kira attended as a princess of the realm, and Sam was included as her husband. The war room filled with the greatest military minds of the Veldan Empire, their scales shifting between yellow anxiety and red anger as the reports were read. The scouts report over 3,000 Korthak vessels massing near the neutral zone, General Thex announced. His voice was grim. "This is the largest raiding fleet seen in 2 centuries. Admiral Kor, the head of the Veldan Space Fleet, studied the tactical displays. Our fleet numbers only 800 ships. We are outgunned significantly. Numbers do not always determine victory," King Varek said, though his golden scales had darkened with worry. "The Veldan military has never been defeated. We will find a way." Sam raised his hand quietly. "Your Majesty, might I suggest contacting the Human Colonial Alliance? Our fleets could provide assistance." The war room fell silent. Then General Thex laughed harshly. "Human assistance? What could your tiny ships do against the Korthak? Your weapons are designed for police work, not real warfare." "The human fleet might serve as a distraction," Admiral Kor said thoughtfully. "They could draw some enemy ships away from our main force." Sam's jaw tightened slightly, but he kept his voice calm. "The Human Colonial Alliance has dealt with the Korthak before. We know their tactics and weaknesses." "Weaknesses?" General Thex scoffed. "The only weakness the Korthak have is that they sometimes leave survivors to tell of their brutality. They have conquered every force they have ever faced." King Varek held up a massive hand for silence. "While we appreciate the offer, Sam Torres, this is a matter for the Veldan military to handle. We cannot risk having untrained human crews interfere with our battle plans." Sam nodded respectfully, but Kira saw something flash in his eyes for just a moment. It was not fear or disappointment. It was something else entirely, something she could not identify. "I understand, Your Majesty. I hope your forces prove victorious." As the meeting continued, Kira found herself watching Sam instead of listening to the military discussions. He sat quietly, taking notes in a small book, occasionally nodding at the tactical reports. He showed no fear at the approaching danger, which surprised her. Any rational person should be terrified of the Korthak. Later, as they walked back to their quarters, Kira finally asked the question that had been bothering her. Are you not afraid of what is coming? The Korthak have destroyed entire worlds. Sam was quiet for several steps. Then he said, I am concerned about the innocent people who might be hurt. Fear for myself is less important than ensuring their safety. You speak as if you could actually do something to help, Kira said. The Velden military barely has a chance against the Korthak. What could one human possibly do? Sam stopped walking and looked at her with those calm eyes. You might be surprised what humans can do when the people they care about are threatened. Something in his voice made Kira's scales ripple with an emotion she could not name. For just a moment, Sam had sounded different. Not weak or gentle, but something else entirely. Over the next few days, as the Velden military prepared for the coming battle, Kira continued to observe her strange husband. He spent even more time with his plants, but now she noticed that his movements were more precise, more focused. He read his poetry, but she caught him also studying technical manuals about Velden military equipment. When she asked him about this, Sam simply said, I like to understand how things work. The Korthak fleet arrived sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected their ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The creatures had come in force, just as the scouts had reported. 3,000 vessels of various sizes, all bristling with weapons designed for destruction. Admiral Kor immediately began deploying the Velden fleet to defensive positions around the homeworld. The plan was simple: use the planet's orbital defense platforms to support the fleet and make the Korthak pay heavily for every mile of space they took. Sam requested permission to send a message to the Human Colonial Alliance, informing them of the situation. General Thex denied the request. We will not show weakness by calling for help, Thex declared. The Velden Empire stands alone, as it always has. Sam accepted this decision without argument, but that night, Kira found him standing at their window, staring up at the stars where the enemy fleet was gathering. His plants surrounded him, and he was speaking to them in that soft voice she had grown used to. What are you saying to them? She asked. Sam turned to look at her. In the starlight, his face looked different somehow. Older. More serious. I am saying goodbye. The word sent a chill through Kira's scales. Goodbye. Where are you going? Nowhere, Sam replied. But tomorrow, when the battle begins, everything will change. The man you have known these past weeks may not survive what is coming. Kira felt confusion wash over her. I do not understand. You are not a soldier. You will be safe in the palace while the real warriors fight. Sam's smile was sad. Safety is an illusion, Kira. And sometimes, even those who prefer peace must be prepared to fight. As he spoke, alarms began to sound throughout the palace. The Korthak had begun their attack. The first explosion shook the entire palace. Kira grabbed the window frame as the floor trembled beneath her feet. Outside, she could see bright flashes in the night sky as the Korthak fleet opened fire on the orbital defense stations. The beautiful stars were being replaced by the ugly glow of weapons fire. The shields are holding, Sam said quietly, watching the battle unfold above them. His voice was strangely calm for someone witnessing the beginning of a war. More explosions followed. The Korthak ships moved like angry insects, swarming around the larger Velden vessels. Their weapons fired in rapid bursts, overwhelming the defenders with sheer numbers. Even from the ground, Kira could see that her people were in trouble. We should go to the emergency bunkers, she said, her scales shifting to pale green with fear. Father will have the royal family moved to safety. Sam nodded but did not move from the window. You should go. I will join you shortly. What are you doing? Kira demanded. This is not the time to water your plants. Sam turned to look at her, and again she saw that strange expression in his eyes. I am saying goodbye to the person I used to be. Before Kira could ask what he meant, another alarm began sounding. This one was different, deeper, more urgent. It was the palace invasion warning. Somehow, the Korthak had broken through the orbital defenses and landed ground forces. That is impossible, Kira breathed. The space battle just started. How could they have gotten through so quickly? Sam moved away from the window, walking to a small chest he kept in the corner of their room. The Korthak are very good at what they do. They have perfected the art of overwhelming their enemies with speed and violence. He opened the chest and began pulling out items Kira had never seen before. There was a strange suit of armor that looked like it was made from some kind of flexible metal. There were weapons, small but clearly advanced. And there was a helmet with a face mask that looked both beautiful and terrible. What is all of this? Kira asked, her voice rising with panic. Where did these things come from? From my ship, Sam replied as he began putting on the armor. The flexible material seemed to flow over his body like liquid metal, adjusting itself to fit perfectly. Every human diplomat carries emergency equipment, just in case peaceful solutions fail. Kira watched in amazement as her gentle husband transformed before her eyes. The armor made him look larger, more dangerous. When he put on the helmet, his face disappeared behind a mask that seemed to shift and change like a living thing. Sam, what are you doing? She whispered. What I was trained to do, came his voice, but it sounded different now. Deeper. More controlled. What every human learns to do when the people they care about are threatened. The palace shook again, this time from explosions much closer. Through the walls, they could hear the sounds of combat, plasma fire, screams, and the terrible chittering sounds that Korthak made when they fought. Sam finished putting on his equipment and walked to their door. When he opened it, they could see smoke filling the corridor outside. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls, and the air smelled of burning metal and something worse. Stay behind me, Sam commanded, and his voice carried an authority that Kira had never heard before. Do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you. They moved into the corridor, and immediately Kira could see the carnage. Velden guards lay scattered across the floor, their golden armor cracked and broken. The walls were scarred with weapons fire, and in some places, the elegant decorations had been completely destroyed. How did they get through so fast? Kira asked in horror. These were our best warriors. The Korthak do not fight like civilized species, Sam replied, checking his weapons. They do not follow rules of war or show mercy. They attack with pure savagery until their enemies break. As they moved through the palace, they began to encounter survivors. Velden nobles who had been hiding inside rooms came out when they saw the princess. Many were wounded, all were terrified. The creatures that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years were learning what it felt like to be prey. Princess Kira, called Lord Vex, an elderly nobleman with deep cuts across his silver scales. Thank the ancestors you are alive. The creatures are everywhere. They have taken the throne room. Where are the guards? Kira demanded. Where is the military? Dead or scattered, Lord Vex replied grimly. These things fight like demons. Our weapons barely slow them down, and they move faster than anything has a right to move. Sam stepped forward, and even through his helmet, his voice carried clearly. How many civilians are trapped in the palace? Lord Vex looked confused. I do not know. Hundreds, perhaps. But what does it matter? We cannot fight these creatures. You cannot fight them, Sam corrected. I can. Before anyone could ask what he meant, the corridor ahead of them exploded in plasma fire. Korthak warriors came charging around the corner, massive insectoid creatures with razor-sharp claws and weapons mounted on their arms. They moved with terrifying speed, their multiple eyes focused on the group of survivors. Kira had seen pictures of the Korthak, but encountering them in person was far worse. They stood over 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor that gleamed like black metal. Their limbs ended in claws that could slice through Velden scales like paper, and their weapons were integrated into their very bodies. The first Korthak fired its arm-mounted plasma cannon at the group of survivors. Lord Vex screamed and threw himself to the ground. Kira watched in frozen terror as the deadly energy blast raced toward them. Then Sam moved. Kira had never seen anything like it. Her husband flowed around the plasma blast like water, moving with speed that seemed impossible for any living creature. In one smooth motion, he drew a weapon from his armor and fired back. The Korthak warrior's head exploded. The second Korthak attacked with its claws, moving so fast that Kira's eyes could barely follow it. Sam met the attack head-on, but instead of trying to overpower the creature, he seemed to use its own momentum against it. He twisted aside at the last second, grabbed one of the Korthak's arms, and threw the massive creature into the wall with such force that the stone cracked. The third Korthak tried to get behind Sam while he was dealing with the second. But somehow, Sam knew it was coming. Without even looking, he fired his weapon backward over his shoulder. The shot hit the Korthak in the center of its chest, and the creature collapsed instantly. The entire fight lasted less than 10 seconds. Lord Vex stared at the bodies of the Korthak warriors, then at Sam, his mouth hanging open in shock. "What are you?" Sam was already moving, checking the corridor ahead for more enemies. "I am a human. And right now, I am very angry." As they continued through the palace, they encountered more groups of survivors. Each time, Sam organized them, gave them directions to safer areas, and sent them on their way. His transformation was complete now. The gentle man who read poetry and tended plants had become something else entirely. They reached the main hall to find chaos. Dozens of Korthak warriors were rampaging through the beautiful chamber, destroying everything they could find. Ancient tapestries burned, priceless sculptures lay in pieces, and the bodies of Velden defenders were scattered everywhere. In the center of the destruction stood General Thex, fighting desperately against 3 Korthak at once. The massive Velden warrior was wounded and bleeding, his golden armor cracked in several places. Even as they watched, one of the Korthak slashed him across the back, and he stumbled. "We have to help him," Kira said, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew it was hopeless. How could they possibly fight so many enemies? Sam was studying the scene with the cold calculation of a predator selecting its prey. "Stay here. Do not move until I call for you." "Sam, no." Kira grabbed his arm. "There are too many of them. You will be killed." Sam looked at her, and even through his helmet, she could see his eyes. They were not the kind eyes of the man she had married. They were the eyes of something ancient and dangerous, something that had learned to kill before it learned to speak. "Kira," he said gently, "humans did not become the dominant species on their homeworld by being peaceful. We became dominant by being the most effective predators the universe has ever created." He moved into the main hall like a force of nature. The first Korthak never saw him coming. Sam appeared behind it and drove a blade through the creature's neck with surgical precision. The second Korthak turned to face this new threat and found itself staring at something that moved like liquid death. Sam did not fight like the Veldens, who relied on strength and honor. He did not fight like the Korthak, who used speed and savagery. He fought like something that had evolved specifically to hunt other hunters. Every movement was efficient. Every strike was perfectly placed. When a Korthak tried to shoot him, Sam was no longer where the weapon was aimed. When a Korthak tried to slash him with claws, Sam turned the creature's own attack against it. He seemed to know what his enemies were going to do before they did it. The Korthak warriors, who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, began to show something they rarely displayed: fear. General Thex, given a moment to recover, watched in amazement as the small human carved through his enemies like they were made of paper. "By the ancestors," he breathed. "What is he?" More Korthak poured into the hall from other parts of the palace, responding to the sounds of battle. They came in greater numbers, thinking to overwhelm this strange enemy with sheer force. Instead, they found themselves facing something that seemed to grow more dangerous as the odds against it increased. Sam moved through the crowd of enemies like a dancer performing a deadly ballet. His weapons fired with perfect accuracy, never wasting a shot. His blades found gaps in armor that should not have existed. When he needed to reload, he used his enemies' own weapons against them, turning their strength into weakness. Kira watched from the doorway, unable to look away. This was her husband, the man who spoke gently to plants and read poetry in quiet moments. But this was also something else entirely, a glimpse of what humans truly were beneath their civilized exterior. The battle in the main hall attracted attention from throughout the palace. More Korthak arrived, but so did surviving Velden defenders. They had been scattered and demoralized, but seeing this impossible human warrior gave them new hope. They began to rally around Sam, following his lead as he turned their desperate defense into a coordinated counterattack. "Form up on the human!" General Thex shouted, his voice carrying over the sounds of battle. "Follow his lead." The Korthak, for the first time in their long history of conquest, found themselves retreating. The small groups of warriors that had spread throughout the palace were being hunted down and eliminated with ruthless efficiency. Their perfect invasion was falling apart. Sam coordinated the Velden forces with tactical genius that transformed every engagement into a victory. He seemed to understand exactly how to use each defender's strengths while protecting their weaknesses. Under his leadership, the scattered palace guards became a deadly fighting force. "How does he know all this?" General Thex asked Kira during a brief pause in the fighting. "Your husband fights like he has studied warfare for centuries." Kira could only shake her head. "I thought I knew him. But I have never seen anything like this." The answer came as they fought their way toward the throne room, where the main body of Korthak invaders had gathered. Sam was helping a wounded Velden soldier when he noticed Kira watching him. "Every human child learns to fight," he explained quietly. "We tell ourselves it is for sport or fitness, but the truth is deeper than that. We are a species that has survived by being better at violence than anything else we encountered. We learn to hide that nature behind civilization, but when we need it, it is always there." "But you are a diplomat," Kira protested. "You chose peace." Sam's helmet turned toward the sounds of battle ahead. "I chose peace because I understand the cost of war. But understanding peace and being unable to fight are not the same thing." The final battle took place in the throne room, where the Korthak commander had established his base of operations. The creature was larger than any they had faced, covered in scars from 1,000 battles. It stood over King Varek, who was wounded but alive, held prisoner on his own throne. "So, the Korthak commander chittered in broken Velden, the famous human warrior comes at last. I have heard of your species. You are said to be skilled at war." Sam walked into the throne room alone, his weapons ready but not raised. "I am skilled at ending wars. Release the king and withdraw your forces, and no more of your people need to die today." The Korthak commander laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You speak of mercy. You have killed hundreds of my warriors." "I have defended innocent people," Sam corrected. "There is a difference." "Show me this difference," the commander snarled, raising weapons that gleamed with deadly energy. What followed was not really a fight. It was a demonstration of why humans had survived every challenge their hostile homeworld had thrown at them. The Korthak commander was faster, stronger, and more heavily armed than Sam. None of that mattered. Sam fought with the accumulated wisdom of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain through pure determination. He turned the commander's strengths against it, used its aggression to create openings, and struck with precision that seemed almost supernatural. When it was over, the Korthak commander lay defeated, and the remaining invaders were surrendering or fleeing. The palace was secure, and King Varek was free. In the aftermath, as Sam helped tend to the wounded with the same gentle care he showed his plants, Kira finally understood what she had seen. Her husband had not changed during the battle. He had simply revealed what he had always been, a human being, with all the terrifying capability that implied. "You knew this would happen," she said as they sat together in their quarters later that night. "You knew the Korthak would attack, and you knew what you would have to do." Sam was back in his simple robes, cleaning his weapons with careful, methodical movements. "I hoped it would not be necessary. But yes, I was prepared. Why did you not tell me?" Sam looked at her with those kind eyes that she now knew could become something much more dangerous when needed. "Would you have believed me if I had told you that your weak human husband was actually a trained warrior?" Kira thought about this. "No. I would have thought you were lying or delusional. Then it was better to let you see for yourself." Sam finished cleaning his weapons and put them away. Humans learned long ago that it is often better to be underestimated than feared. Let others think we are weak until the moment we need to prove otherwise. Kira's scales rippled with a new emotion, not fear or disgust, but respect. The peace treaty. This was never really about preventing war, was it? Sam smiled, and now that she knew what he was capable of, the expression looked different. The peace treaty was about preventing the kind of war that would require my people to show what we are truly capable of. Trust me, Princess, you do not want to see what happens when humanity decides that diplomacy has failed. Outside their window, the human ships that had been denied permission to help were finally arriving. They had come anyway, drawn by distress signals from the palace. But the battle was already over, ended by a single human who had chosen to protect the people he cared about. Kira understood now why the peace treaty had been so important to the human colonial alliance. It was not because they feared the Velden Empire. It was because they were trying to protect the galaxy from seeing what humans could do when they stopped pretending to be civilized. She looked at her husband, reading his poetry in the quiet aftermath of battle, tending to plants with gentle hands that had just demonstrated their deadly skill. This was what humans truly were, predators who had chosen to be gardeners, but who never forgot how to hunt when hunting became necessary. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, as she watched Sam carefully water a small flower that had somehow survived the battle, Kira felt safer than she had ever felt in her life. She was married to a human. And now she finally understood what that truly meant.